Wrestling, like all other forms of entertainment, has to have a reason. Wrestling events, like every other type of event, have to have a reason. WWE Evolution 2025 had a reason and a purpose. And on that front, it delivered, cocksucks. However, there were many things that were wrong with this, and that's why the hater is here instead of the lover, which may or may not be reviewing this garbage tomorrow. Now, I will start out by saying very quickly that for what it was trying to do, Evolution was a success, right? Evolution was trying to highlight the past, the present, and the future of women's wrestling. There was a story that was told, and although it's the same story as Last Evolution, it nevertheless is a story, and thus the hater respects it a little bit. Now, the matches, I will say the truth. Some of the matches were pretty good, motherfucks. You know what I mean? So let's get started and go through this match by match. You heard? Number one, Becky Lynch versus Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. This is the least interesting match on the card, in my personal opinion. Now, with that being said, this match is the first example of the countless examples tonight of things that nobody really cares about. Fundamentally, the problem with women's wrestling always has been that the women have seldom had any gimmicks. The women have coasted by on personalities, which is fine. Sometimes, on the rare occasion, women would have one of the 2 or 3 gimmicks that were available to them. We had the gimmick of the slut, who sleeps around and ruins relationships. You know, Tori Wilson, Trish Stratus, those types of wrestlers, Stacy Keibler in WCW. Then we have the gimmick of the crazy woman, which often manifests as the crazy fan who is obsessed with a current wrestler. Think Mickie James, think Victoria, think Tori, not Tori Wilson, but the original Tori with Sable. That's kind of the gimmicks that women had. Beyond that, it was just personalities. Trish Stratus is a beautiful blonde woman. Lita is like an extreme punk rock type chick. Jacqueline is black, and so on, right? They don't have any gimmicks. They just coast on their personalities or their differences in appearance, right? So Chyna, for example, has no gimmick. She has no personality. She's just, the difference between her and Jacqueline is that Chyna is bigger and stronger, and Jacqueline is black, right? The difference between Jacqueline and Victoria is white and Jacqueline is black. Later on, because at one point Victoria had like a crazy girl gimmick, you know what I mean? There are no gimmicks in women's wrestling historically, and nowadays there's no gimmicks in wrestling, period, right? So the women are also left out. But nevertheless, the hater will be honest, and I will say that some women stand out more than others. However, in this first match, 2 of the 3 women are completely irrelevant. Becky Lynch is the only one here who has any kind of a semblance of a gimmick. Her gimmick can best be described as Conor McGregor ripoff, but nevertheless, it is a gimmick. Meaning that when Becky Lynch comes out to cut a promo, you expect something that's very Becky Lynch-ish. When Tiffany Stratton comes out to cut a promo, you can expect the same promo as Bayley. Yeah, Tiffany Stratton will say toodles at some point and will kind of like talk like a rich girl, but fundamentally, they're going to say the same things in the same way. Becky Lynch stands out amongst these 2 other jobbers, and during this match, the commentary was the best part tonight. Michael Cole was he went full retard. He went full Michael Cole, you know what I mean? But basically, during this match, we learned that Bayley, according to most, and we all already knew this, is the 4th of the 4 horsewomen, right? She's irrelevant, basically, and that's fair. That's completely true, you know what I mean? But she has a chip on her shoulder because, you know, she sucks, basically, right? Nobody wants to say it like it is. She's the least interesting of the 4 horsewomen, so therefore, she's the one that nobody gives a shit about. I mean, I personally think Sasha Banks is 4th. They should have said Sasha Banks is 4th because she's in a different company, but they're dumbasses. They don't even think about these things, right? The match ends with Becky Lynch winning. Who the hell cares, right? The Intercontinental title is stupid. This feud is dumb. Lyra Valkyria is like a face one day, then a heel the next. She cuts boring promos. Lyra Valkyria has to go out there with fucking Anarchia and Brock Anderson as one of the worst wrestlers of all time. I mean, like, there is no doubt about it, you know? It's either Anarchia. I mean, Anarchia, he was okay. He was like a Chavo Guerrero. It's Machete. Remember Machete from LAX? Nobody does. Don't worry about it. But Machete, Anarchia, Brock Anderson, and you can tag onto that list fucking Lyra Valkyria. There's a few others, but those come to mind right now. After this, we had a ridiculous match. It was a women's match for the NXT, obviously it was a women's match, duh, dumb fuck, it's Evolution. For the NXT women's title, it was JC Jane, with her girls, versus Jordan Grace, who came with Blake Monroe. I despised this match. Number one, the entire time, and I watched NXT, I watched the NXT pay-per-view, I didn't review it, because quite honestly, it was not good. I didn't enjoy it at all. And honestly, for the same reasons that I didn't enjoy this overall, right? For some reason, they keep saying in the NXT pay-per-view and now that JC Jane is arguably the most beatable champion in NXT history, or at least in NXT women's history. This is ridiculous. Why would you say this about your champion? You know, they're basically saying that she sucks. Well, if she sucks, and I'm not supposed to care about her, according to Michael Cole, then thank you. I won't care about her, and therefore I don't give a shit about this match. During this match, Blake Monroe, who, I forget her name, she was like Maya something in AEW, like Mariah May, I think it was, who was in AEW. She was very interesting. She was very attractive. Here, she looks a little off. For some reason, she's obviously an attractive girl, no doubt about it. She betrays Jordan Grace. And despite the fact that Blake Monroe debuted like yesterday, or whatever, this is supposed to be this big deal. Like, both Blake Monroe and Jordan Grace have been in this company for a cup of coffee. So why am I supposed to, like, be surprised that Blake Monroe betrayed Jordan Grace? I don't care at all. Blake Monroe has not been established as this, like, you know, babyface, like, hero, and that her betrayal is, like, a big deal. Nobody gives a shit about this. Nobody cares at all. Blake Monroe has barely been introduced to the WWE universe. And quite frankly, the way that she has been introduced, I automatically assumed she would turn heel. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Because that's kind of like her whole character. She's supposed to be this snooty brat. She's like a Tiffany Stratton. I don't know why these girls become faces, you know? She's obviously better looking than Tiffany Stratton, but that's neither here nor there. After this, we move on to the women's tag team title match, right? We have the Judgment Day, which is, of course, Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez against Charlotte and Alexa Bliss, Sol Ruka and Zarya, and the Kabuki Warriors. Now, the Kabuki Warriors have a stereotypical Japanese gimmick, so good for them, you know what I mean? I guess that counts. In my opinion, it is a gimmick, but it is a bad gimmick, right? It's a racially humiliating gimmick, personally, right? And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, because I think it played a big part in the Battle Royal, which was probably my favorite part of the match. I mean, of the event, but not for the reasons that you may think. Stay tuned for that. That's going to be a good discussion. So anyways, the match, again, nobody cares, but the match is interesting, right? It wasn't a bad match, but the reason why nobody cares is because Michael Cole, during the match, is telling us, like, little stories, little tidbits about all these broads. So he's like, Raquel Rodriguez idolized China and Beth Phoenix because she, too, is a big broad. Like, basically is what he said. You know what I mean? Good for her. I mean, like, I don't give a fuck, to be honest, but that's not enough for me to get invested. You know, I'm not really invested in China or Beth Phoenix, certainly not anymore, you know? And I'm not invested in women that don't have gimmicks. Basically, Raquel Rodriguez's gimmick is that she's just a big girl, which sometimes is fine. You know, if you're a big girl, that's an acceptable way to present yourself. But what about the rest of these broads? There is absolutely no difference whatsoever, I don't care what anybody says, between, I don't know, Roxanne Perez and Alexa Bliss. There is no difference at all. Alexa Bliss dresses like Harley Quinn now, you know, and she still has that Bray Wyatt situation. She carries around a doll, but this has no bearing at all on her gimmick. She's just a girl that carries around the doll. Like, she is not the same character that she was at WrestleMania when, like, blood came out of her head and Randy Orton, like, destroyed Bray Wyatt. Rest in peace. You know what I mean? She's not that character anymore. Now she's just a girl with a doll. I don't care what prop you hold. Oh, this Sheamus is a shillelagh now. Who gives a flying fuck? You know what I mean? Unless, like, for example, when Finlay had a shillelagh, it was integrated into his character. Even Little Bastard, also known as Hornswoggle, was integrated into his character. And in that year's WWE game, you could pick Little Bastard, I think he was already Hornswoggle, as your manager, and you could summon him to, like, bring out a shillelagh for you, you know, which was great. So these, like, prop-based wrestlers are not entertaining. So Raquel Rodriguez, Roxanne Perez, Charlotte Flair as well, right? Charlotte Flair's gimmick is that she's Nature Boy's daughter. I mean, like, not really a gimmick. Her presentation is exactly the same as Ric Flair's, so she's a girl. Alexa Bliss, Zarya, I don't even know what the fuck that is. Zarya is like a colossal failure in this company. I don't give a shit, but basically, like, she just dresses weird. You know, she kind of looks like Ivy Nile, and, like, there's nothing unique about her. Nothing is presented as interesting about her. And she's just another wrestler. And that's the problem here. Sol Ruka, she's got this surfer thing going, but so what? You know what I mean? This has no bearing on her character at all, right? It's just a hobby that she has. The same way that Alexa Bliss plays with dolls, Sol Ruka likes to surf. Ooh, that's very intriguing. If she was like a surfer chick and like she hung out with like, you know, there was like a tag team of surfer guys and they naturally connected and became like a 3-man group, that might be interesting, right? And like, let's say you had like a storyline, now this is gonna sound stupid, but someone steals their surfboards, right? The same way that Kurt Angle vandalized Undertaker's bike, right? The Undertaker's American badass / like, you know, biker gimmick, because it wasn't always just the American badass, the biker gimmick was integrated into his character. The bike was a prop, but not only a prop that he used to come to the ring with, it was a prop that was used in storylines. Like, you don't touch Undertaker's bike. You know, he turned into this like legit like tough guy. Like you knew exactly what he was representing, right? You knew exactly what he was. He was the kind of guy where like you walk into like a random restaurant in the middle of like Texas or something, right? And you see like a biker gang and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go eat somewhere else maybe, you know what I mean? That's the kind of guy that he was being presented as. And that is something that we can all relate to because we know people like that, or at least we see people like that. And most of us are going to be intrigued about people like that, right? Even though they're just like me and you, we're all people, right? But some people are more interesting than others because of the choices they make. In this case, all these broads are exactly the same. So the question then becomes, who gives a shit who wins? Unless it's the Kabuki Warriors, which it wasn't, then it doesn't matter at all. Even if it's Kabuki Warriors, they just act like crazy Japanese girls, but it has no bearing on their storyline. Maybe if someone took a piss on their masks, that would make it interesting, you know? But we don't do that anymore. We don't do fun things. Oh, who stole Asuka's mask? You know, now it's like everybody's just as generic as shit. After this, we had what I thought was probably the most entertaining match of the night overall. Tiffany Stratton versus Trish Stratus. This was a very short match, but nevertheless, it showed that Trish Stratus is awesome. She hung in there with Tiffany, and this match, in my personal opinion, highlighted some problems that are evident in wrestling. At some point, Tiffany Stratton does like one of the best swanton bombs of all time, right? She and Jacob Fatu have the same moveset. They both do swanton bombs, which is like an awesome move, and people kick out at 2, and then they do like a moonsault, right, which is a basic move, and that's their finisher. Very odd. I don't like it. Trish pulled out a moonsault that didn't work. Eventually, Tiffany tried to do her little spinny around thing like Alabama Slam, and she failed, but she did it anyways. Then she hit the PME, and then, you know, she won the match. And that's that. I mean, there wasn't anything more to say about this. Trish got like a standing ovation. Trish rules. Trish looks great. Trish is just awesome, right? But she's awesome only because back in the day, there was like 4 women, and she was probably the most attractive one, so she got the most screen time, right? Trish also, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true. Trish also has no gimmick. And I get it. Like, back in the day, if you have 5 women, you don't need gimmicks, right? You don't need gimmicks at all because there's only 5, 6 women. So who the fuck cares? But if you have, like, 30 women, well, you need some gimmicks so that I have a reason to like one over the other, right? So, for example, a lot of kids back in high school, they liked The Undertaker player when he was the American Badass, right? They liked him more as American Badass than they did as The Undertaker, right? The goth kids were like, oh, I want The Undertaker to come back as the dead man, right? Different groups of people resonated with different versions of the same guy. Now think about that, but extend it to an entire roster of diverse characters. You know, one of my buddies, he was a big Godfather fan, right? One of my buddies in elementary school, actually, right? And he was like, oh man, he's like, I'm a pimp too. You know, we were like in 3rd grade or some shit, right? He's like, I'm a pimp ttoo, right? And then someone was like, oh, Val Venus, like he gets all the girls. You know what I'm saying? People would latch on to different wrestlers, not because Val Venus does like a splash and Godfather does the pimp drop. Nobody gave a shit about that. The character is what we cared about. Nowadays, nobody has any characters, and therefore nobody stands out. Once again, the Kabuki Warriors stood out in the last match. In this match, Trish stands out by virtue of being Trish, but objectively, you know, she also stands out for being the best-looking woman on the show, probably. But, you know, beyond that, it is what it is. It is a nostalgia act. Then we had a short but effective no-holds-barred match between Jade Cargill and Naomi. Roxanne Perez and fucking Raquel Rodriguez win the match. See, nobody even cares. After this, we have Jade Cargill and Naomi, I believe, was the next match after the Trish match. And this was a pretty good match. It was a hardcore match. I can't get past the fact that all the tables have Slim Jim on them. The match ends with Jade Cargill predictably doing a Jaded through the table. Good finish, good match. I don't have much to say about this, except for this match in the aggregate with other matches highlights another problem that I think needs to be discussed. Number one, there's like 19 number one contenders. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, Jade Cargill is the number one contender at SummerSlam. Then the winner of tonight's Battle Royal is the number one contender at Clash in Paris or whatever, right? Then we have Naomi, who is, the Money in the Bank holder, right? Then we've got Trish Stratus, who is the number one contender. Then we've got Rhea Ripley, who is the number one contender in the other show, right? Then we got whatever the fuck's happening in NXT. Like, everybody's either a champion or a number one contender. You know what I mean? Nobody is like mid, except for like a few of the jobber ones, But that was the problem that I had with this match. It's like Naomi has a guaranteed title shot. Jade Cargill has a guaranteed title shot. So this is just a grudge match. But we've already had the grudge match. So why are they wrestling again? We've already had these broads wrestle ad nauseum. However, I will say this. The hater is an honest man. Jade Cargill, as far as I'm concerned, her stock has plummeted to near zero. She's no longer interesting. I could give a shit about her. More on that later as we discuss the next match. Whereas Naomi's stock has risen considerably. Naomi, again, she's going to one of the default gimmicks. She's going to the crazy girl gimmick, but nevertheless, it's a gimmick. Jade Cargill has no gimmick. Jade Cargill is just China, but she's black. That's literally her gimmick. And that is something that works if you push her to the moon. If by now Jade Cargill had been champion for like a year and a half, then I'd be like, this is sick, But that's not what happened. Jade Cargill has been completely mid. She's been feuding with Naomi, and quite frankly, Naomi has come out on top overall, right? Naomi is, in my opinion, more over, and she's more interesting, and she's more entertaining. So take that, Jade. After this, we have a 19-woman Evolution Battle Royal. That's what Michael Cole said. Why couldn't it be 20 women? Fuck, just pick somebody else. Make it 20, make it a nice even number. So this match was not bad. I personally, the match was very botchy and sloppy, but it was what it was. It's like a 19-woman match, right? I didn't hate it. But basically people start getting eliminated in order of jobberdom. Like the first few are like Izzy Dame, Ivy Nile, Maxine Dupree, Tatum Paxley, like these kinds of jobbers, right? Then after we get rid of this first wave, then we got the other jobbers like Kelani Jordan, Jada Parker, Julia, and then there's a part where B-Fab and Michin, now this is the part that I didn't like at all. Like B-Fab and Michin, they're presented as ghetto girls, so of course they have to shake their ass for the fans. I find this to be humiliating, almost on a racial level, you know what I mean? I don't know if someone made them do that or told them like this is part of your gimmick now. If that's the case, that's completely inappropriate. If they want to do it themselves, then shame on them for reducing themselves to a stereotype. But hey, it is what it is. Undertaker also reduced himself to a white man stereotype, the biker stereotype, and it got him pretty far. So, but this won't get them anywhere because nobody cares about them. After this, there's a bunch of weird eliminations, and it's about this time, when about half the women are gone, that I notice that someone that I thought for a second was Opa Femi is in this match. It turns out it's Lash Legend, but I'm not saying that to be a dick. I honestly, I'm like, what the fuck's Oba Femi doing there? I actually had a moment. I'm not saying it to be a dick, I swear to God. You know what I mean? Maybe a little bit, but I'm not trying to be a dick because I have good things to say about Lash Legend. Lash Legend stood out in this match. She has no gimmick, but she doesn't need one because she's a fucking freak of nature. In my opinion, she is superior to Jade. Now, she's not, and I hate to make it about this, like, personally, I think Jade Cargill is a very attractive woman, and I think, like I said, a minute ago, that Lash Legend looks a little bit like Opa Femi. Her hair just looked completely fake. She's just massive. You know what I mean? She's got like a weird face. She has like a Naomi face on like an Opa Femi body. But anyways, it is what it is. I don't have anything against her. She stood out. She picked up Nia Jax, which is rather impressive for a woman to do. Overall, she was the standout of this match. Then we've got Stephanie Vaquer, who is probably my favorite wrestler in the world right now as far as women's wrestlers go. And the reason is, and I'll explain why, because before, Stephanie Vaquer ended up winning this match by doing the devil's kiss on the apron and just throwing Lash Legend off like a piece of shit, which that part I didn't like because it was like the elimination of Lash Legend was just so anticlimactic. She did literally 10 of the devil's kiss things on the apron and just like slipped her over. And Lash Legend, like, she deserved better in this match. But anyways, it is what it is. At some point, Nikki Bella was there. She also shaked her ass. And then afterwards, she shaked her ass with Lola Vice. Now, Nikki Bella and Lola Vice are both Latina women. So naturally, they also have to shake their ass for the fans. Now, the hater is not turning into an SJW, but the facts are the facts, right? Like, how about don't do this? Stop humiliating yourselves, especially within the context of evolution. The hater doesn't care on a moral level. I don't give a flying fuck. Shake your ass all you want. The hater is all about that kind of life. If you want to live that life, right? And it's not a big deal. I'm not trying to be a prude and be like, how could they do this? But the idea is, this is evolution, right? The whole point of the pay-per-view is to step away from this kind of presentation, right? But because Nikki Bella used to shake her ass, and Lola Vice does currently shake her ass, as Wade Barrett told us, why not have them shake their ass together? I'm sure the men are going to love this in a night of empowering women. Anyways, it is what it is. At some point earlier in the match, I just remembered this. This is my favorite part of the event by far. Candice LeRae is in this match, right? And basically, she gets eliminated. And Michael Cole says, Candice LeRae on the apron. Then she gets kicked off, and then he's like, Candice Michelle has been eliminated. Like, literally 1 second after he said Candice LeRae. Wade Barrett is like, oh, Michael, you shouldn't say that, And he's like, yeah, she was mad at me, like, the first time. And then they just started laughing. Like, this is not a laughing matter. I'm not trying to say Michael should be fired for this. Obviously, people make mistakes. Who gives a fuck? But it's a mistake. You know what I mean? It's a mistake on national TV. It shows a complete lack of respect for Candice LeRae. I get it. You make a mistake, people make mistakes. No one's saying anything, but don't laugh at it. Just be like, remember when Steve Harvey he didn't read it, but he was given, I think, the wrong name for the Miss Universe winner. And he went out there, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, there's been a misunderstanding. He didn't laugh about it. And he thought it was funny. But he didn't laugh about it because he's a good presenter. He's a presenter with experience. And so is Michael Cole. He's a commentator, but it's the same shit, right? But he just laughed about it. And that's fine, whatever, you move on. Then, like moments later, I shit you not, you can go find this on the replay on Peacock. Mere moments later, mother cucks, mere moments later, we have a situation where Wade Barrett and Michael Cole are continuing to discuss how Michael Cole made this mistake after they left, right? And he's like, yeah, get your head in the game, Cole. And then almost immediately after Wade Barrett says that, Candice LeRae pulls like Kelani Jordan or some nobody that I don't even recognize. She pulls her from the apron, right? And Michael Cole, immediately after Wade Barrett just told him, like, bro, get your head in the game, he's like, Candice Michelle. He says it again, the cocksucker. And then Wade Barrett has to correct him again. It's so humiliating. It's like, how can you be this bad? It reminds me of the time when there was, remember that like show after SmackDown? It was like Talking Smack or whatever. It was a pretty good name, honestly. And Daniel Bryan was there, and they were like, oh, what do you feel about SmackDown? And then he was like, yeah, you know who I like? I like Apollo Creed. And then like Renee Young was like, oh, don't you mean Apollo Crews? Daniel Bryan's like, yeah, sorry. And it's like, bro, the entire point of Apollo Crews is that his name is not Apollo Creed. Like, they tried to make it Apollo Creed, but they were like, that's lame. We can't copyright infringe on that motherfucker. So we're going to call him Apollo Crews, right? And Daniel Bryan is like, Apollo Creed. That's fucking stupid as shit. Yeah, it's really dumb, and I hate it. But anyways, that's how that went down. The match was a disaster, but I will say this. In my opinion, like based on the flow of the match, I would have liked for Lash Legend to win. But I understand that Stephanie Vaquer is like the new one. And Stephanie Vaquer, in my personal opinion, is the best wrestler they've got in the women's division for three reasons. Number one, she's pretty good in the ring and seldom botches. Number two, she's probably the most attractive woman on the roster. In my opinion, she is. Like, I don't even think it's close. And number three, and obviously the reason I say these two things is because they sell. And number three, despite being from Chile, I mean, I know she's white, obviously, but she is a Latina. There are white Latinas and there are black Latinas and there are mestizo Latinas. She's a white Latina. But her gimmick is not that she's a Latina, right? She's not out there like Lola Vice, just in my opinion, racially humiliating herself. Or like the Kabuki Warriors, racially humiliating themselves and making their entire presentation about where they're from. That just means you have no personality, right? Like, it would be like, a great example of this is Obafemi, right? Obafemi, I believe, is from Nigeria. Right? And even though he has like elements of that, where he's like, I am the ruler, right? And like he's presented as this like African badass, right? The fact is, he doesn't come out dressed like as a fucking witch doctor. You know what I mean? He's a regular guy. He just happens to be from Nigeria. And he has a Nigerian accent by virtue of being from Nigeria. Nothing wrong with that, right? But he's not presented as like an African tribesman, He doesn't come out with a spear, Like, which is fine. If that was his gimmick, that's fine, in my opinion, it was better when like Apollo Crews did that, because Apollo Crews isn't like, like he's obviously very Americanized, and it would have been that was hilarious, because all of a sudden he goes from being presented as a regular guy to like being an African guy, Apollo Crews, but Obafemi's presented as a regular dude. Now, that doesn't take away the fact that he has no gimmick, right? Same thing with Stephanie Vaquer. She also has no gimmick, right? Like she comes out with devil horns or whatever, ram horns, but so what? Who gives a fuck? She still needs a gimmick. But the fact is that by not having a gimmick, she has not been forced to, I don't know what the intricacies are, but she has not been put in a situation where she has to prostitute her culture and identity and basically be presented as a Latina who shakes her ass and is sexual at every chance she gets. No, she has like a sexy move, I guess, in the Devil's Kiss, but she's presented as a serious like wrestler. She's presented the same way that like Paige was presented. She's presented in the same way that AJ Lee was presented, or Natalia is presented, that they are just wrestlers who are here to wrestle. Now, those are all terrible examples of wrestlers that in my opinion suck ass, but nevertheless, Stephanie Vaquer, I think she's better looking than all of them, and more importantly, Stephanie Vaquer is over, And then afterwards, Stephanie Vaquer cuts a shitty non-English promo, but I will respect it because she prefaces this by basically saying, you'll have to excuse me, English is not my first language, right? Which I know this sounds like a small detail, but it matters, right? The idea is she's like, please forgive me. Like, I wish I could cut this promo better, right? But I can't. I am limited in this aspect. To me, that's a good admission. It's like, hey, please like me, even though I don't fit the mold of someone that you're supposed to like in the realm of entertainment. Because the primary, the most basic denominator of entertainment is I have to be able to understand you, right? And she addressed that. Nobody else ever has. Asuka just comes out there, speaks broken English, and then screams, and oh, cool. Some people laugh, some people don't. Andrade hasn't learned English. She's been here like 10 years. I hope that Stephanie Vaquer learns English perfectly so she can do it, I really hope that's the case. But I do appreciate that she said wrestling is my language, right? And basically what she was signaling with that is very simple. She's basically saying, look, I'm not going to entertain you on the mic, maybe not yet, but in the ring, that's where I shine, right? That's the language I speak. I thought it was very classy. Stephanie McMahon was there as well. So 2 Stephanies were there. Stephanie Vaquer says she's la primera and whatever, That's it. She wins. She's not number 1 contender in Paris. Good for her. I'm sure it's a dream come true. Anyways, after this, we have the main event, which is Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley. This match, I didn't like it, coming into the match, because it's a Rhea Ripley, Io Sky match. We've seen it like 6-7 times. Nobody gives a shit. And it seems like Io Sky always wins. So I was like, of course Rhea Ripley's going to win. And the match has a lot of, I would say, noteworthy spots. There's a part where they fight outside for like what seems like a fucking eternity, which I thought was cool. It was kind of weird because the referee was down for an inordinate amount of time. But to be fair, Io Sky does a springboard dropkick onto the ref hard, right? And the ref is a girl ref. So like, a girl kicked a girl. So like, okay, she's going to be down for a while. You know what I mean? It was fair. And then basically what happens is, and this was actually really good timing because I'm watching this match, and basically they both climb to the top rope in a weird way. And like, it's clear they're going for a Spanish fly, but it's like, Io Sky's been dominating this match in these last few minutes, it seems like. So Io Sky hits the fucking, what's it called? The Spanish fly. And then as soon as she hits it, I'm like, man, if Naomi doesn't cash in right now, that's fucking stupid. It doesn't make any sense. This would be the best time to cash in. And just as I say that in my head, Naomi comes out, motherfucks, and she cashes in. And unlike that retard, Seth Rollins, who goes, he's like, I'm gonna cash in. And then like, he's like, oh, I never did. Like, shut the fuck up, you know what I mean? She cashes in, full-blown cash in, right? She cashed it in, motherfucks. And she gives the title, the case to like Aisha Taylor or whatever her name is. She announces it. The person ringing the bell doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. So they ring the bell. I guess Naomi doesn't hear. She's like, ring the bell. He rings it again. She grabs the case. And this didn't take that long. It did take me out of the match a little bit. She grabs the case. Now it's a triple threat match, which means no DQ. So she smashes Io Sky on the head. And then she goes in and smashes Rhea Ripley, throws her into the turnbuckle, like hard. And then she does the Naomi moonsault, like the little, split-legged moonsault, and pins Io Sky to become the new champion, motherfucks. Now, I personally think this is the right decision. However, within the context of the show, this is not a good idea. I understand the Money in the Bank trumps everything. Like, Money in the Bank is like above everything. But the fact is that this was supposed to be a one-on-one match, and Io Sky handpicked, what's her face? Fucking Rhea Ripley to be her opponent. And, like, that's normally whatever, but in the context of Evolution, it's like, you don't want to have, like, a screwy finish. You know what I mean? Because it's like a big PLE, it's like a women's only PLE, and now it's been, I don't say tainted, because honestly, I think it's better for Naomi to win. Like, Io Sky sucks, Rhea Ripley sucks, Naomi's a little bit interesting. I'd like to see her on Raw. I consider this to be a promotion for Naomi, because the women's scene is definitely stronger on Raw, right? Like, that's where the better, if you will, women's wrestlers are, the ones that kind of like matter more. You know what I mean? I mean, you got Tiffany, you got Bianca, but Bianca doesn't even wrestle anymore. She hasn't had a match since like WrestleMania, I don't think. But anyways, it's not here or there. The point is, it was what it was. I didn't completely hate it. The match was certainly good. I'm not going to sit here and be like a hater for no reason. The match was good. But once again, I don't give a flying fuck who wins. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any difference. In this case, I cared a little bit because Naomi came out and I wanted her to win after she cashed in. I was obviously afraid that the cash in would fail. But, you know, that happens sometimes. But beyond that, if it were between Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, I don't give a fuck, motherfuckers. They're the same wrestler to me, right? I have no reason to cheer for one or the other. One is a girl with tattoos. The other one is just Japanese. Like, Io Sky has no gimmick at all. She's just a wrestler. Like, why is Io Sky good at wrestling? Meaning, like, why is she, like, presented as being a better wrestler than Kairi Sane? You know? Why is she being presented as a better wrestler than Jada Parker or Kaylani Scott or whatever? I don't even know who the fuck these girls are. Or Kaylani Jordan, you know? Why? Like, for what reason? You know what I mean? Maybe she is a better, like, technically, like, she can do more moves, but I don't buy that shit. The point is, I could give a shit who wins this match, but the fact that Naomi won, I was entertained by that. So, yeah, that's what I gotta say about that, motherfucks. It was a good event overall in terms of, like, what it was trying to do, but I personally think that the issues that I have with it are completely legit, right? You can't just have the same shit again and again and again. Like, it's like a 20-women match, a 19-women match, and they're all basically the same character, right? Why the hell would I like Lola Vice more than I like Sol Ruka or vice versa, right? I get it. They're two pretty girls who, like, shake their ass. I don't think Sol Ruka shakes her ass, but you know what I mean, right? That's great. I don't care. You know, well, fine. Why would I like Michin more than I like BFAB, right? Or more than I like, you know, Lola Vice, right? They're just three girls that shake their ass, as we saw today. They did nothing impressive and just shake their ass, you know? Like, and that's fine. You have a right to prefer BFAB over, you know, Lola Vice, or, you know, to have a preference of Lola Vice over, you know, Michin. You can have whatever preference you want, but there's really no reason why you would, right? Nobody has a reason to say, like, oh, I like this person because they represent this thing, or they represent that thing, or they do this thing, or they do that thing. They all do the same boring moves, right? And they represent nothing. They have no gimmicks. See what I'm saying? And, like, usually what happened was, if they had no gimmicks, wrestlers were put in, like, gimmickless factions, right? Like, you know, like the B team. You know, you just form a tag team because neither of you have anything going, you know? Things like that, like the Outcast. Remember the Social Outcast? With, like, Heath Slater and, like, a bunch of other jobbers? You know? That's the whole point, right? They don't have anything to do, so their gimmick is going to become, they're just people without gimmicks, which I think is fine. But without gimmicks, it ain't going to work out in the long term. So that being said, this was a good video from me. I enjoyed making this video, and maybe tomorrow we'll see what the lover has to say. I bet your ass, and you can bet your hat, that he's going to have to say some shit about this, cuckolds. That being said, signing off up in this bitch, motherfucks.